What's up, everybody? That time of the day, that time of the week, that time of the month.
Yes, it is.
You are listening to The Good,
The Band,
The Ugly. I'm Big Papa.
I'm Just Jeff.
I get it. You're going to keep doing Just Jeff?
I might.
I hope you get sued.
Me too.
By Just Joe.
Okay.
And then you can...
Bring it on, pal.
Hang on. Sorry, I can't show that to everybody.
No.
So there goes the music.
Yes.
First hatless day.
I know, I'm impressed.
Hatless. I don't look like a balding monk today.
No.
Nope.
He's got his toupee on.
I don't have a toupee, you dick. Just did my hair a little different.
Good. It looks good, man.
You're a dick. I got a hat here just in case the glare comes off the... Thanks. How you doing?
Good.
How was your week?
Good.
Is that all you're going to say today? You're going to elaborate?
Good.
What did you do? What did you do for the long weekend?
The long weekend. The Memorial Day weekend.
Yes. This is because we're recording this right after the Memorial Day weekend.
Well, we opened camp and went to a favorite hot spot of ours.
Oh, would that happen to be the Good Nature Brewery?
It would.
You're not trying to get free shit, are you? We still have to, they're still a paid sponsor, you know.
Yes, they are. No, not for me.
They have to. You'll be getting the invoice
soon.
Yeah, your year is up tomorrow,
pal.
So, anyways, yeah, that's cool. I did some stuff with the club. We have a big ride coming up. Yep. So we're going to be doing a separate little commercial for that.
All right,
just to let you know.
Can do.
But yeah, we do a lot of fundraisers for the old Hades Hounds. So
yes,
got to give a shout out to the boys. What's up? What a great show we have for you today. Syracuse local legend, but has gone on to do, like, Syracuse to us. It's like, look all he did for Syracuse, but then he's gone on and just done such great things. Syracuse is just one of the stops on his road to success. But
don't forget, Mike.
I'll never forget, Mike.
We're coming to you live from...
Oh, well, I was getting to that.
Were you?
The Ultimate Ears studio.
You can hear your own tears.
With Ultimate Ears.
You can.
Yep. It'll be down here in a minute.
Somewhere.
Once our guest comes on. So without further ado, before everybody just click the off button.
Before the wheels on this bus come off.
Yeah. Let's bring on our guest today, local celebrity, Mr. Frank Briggs. Bum, 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 bum. Start video. Look at that. Wow. You gave him the clap.
I did.
Frank just got the clap from Jeff. You never thought you'd get the clap on a TV show.
I know.
Yeah.
So this, okay.
Yeah. How you doing, Frank?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. A lot of people from this area will remember you from your time with local favorite 805. But we learned today that this wasn't your first stop in the musical career.
Yeah.
And I think people really want to hear what you did at a young age, starting off in Rome, New York. Yeah.
Well, it was important. You know, Central New York there's just a wealth of talent. And when I was growing up in the 60s, music was everywhere. And Rome actually had quite a few bands, and the Utica area that I was involved in. But I started playing when I was about 12, I think. My cousin played drums, and my grandfather's, my Sicilian grandfather had a farm, and my cousin had his drums at the farm. So whenever we went to visit my grandfather, there'd be this big, just white pearl Ludwig set that my cousin had. Very Joe Morello. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I must have been a toddler, but I tried to get on it and knocked a bunch of things over. And It was upstairs in a bedroom, and I would go up and try to get on the drums and knock shit over, and then that door would always be locked every time I went to the house again.
Wasn't going to let you in the beat lab.
Yeah, my cousin gave, I got sticks like pretty early on. I remember him. He was an active player, Augie LaMonica, and he was playing at DeCastro's at Sylvan Beach, and it's probably not around anymore.
No, but I think there's a DeCastro's in Rome now still, isn't there?
There is a DeCastro's in Rome. I think we went there to eat when I was back there, and it's the same family.
Nice.
Yeah, it's definitely not there. They moved the restaurant.
Right.
But they had entertainment, and the beach had all kinds of stuff. And my cousin was playing, and I was not, maybe 4 tops, but he took me and sat me on the break. He sat me on the drums, and then gave me some sticks, and I think they took some pictures. And I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So weird.
I've told stories about stuff like that too, Frank. When I was young, and my uncle played in a band called Ivory back in the late 70s, early 80s, and then he played with a band called Four of a Kind, and then Southern Comfort. But I was at Greg's on Teal Ave, and he sat me down and said, "You're going to play Wipeout." And I think I was 10, taking drum lessons at school at DeSantis, and I learned Wipeout, and I played it for the first time. And when people applauded at that exact moment, I was like, "That's it. This is what I want. I want to be." People were applauding. I'm not getting, because most of my life I went through, kid's a moron type thing, and you shut up. All right.
It's nice when you find something like that, because I've talked to people. Like I had a passion for this, and I know you know what this is like from a very young age. So there was a focus on this thing that I really was passionate about, and I've met people, and even like nieces and nephews or something that just didn't have they didn't have that.
Yeah,
they didn't have that one thing, whether it be electrical wiring, or playing an instrument, or dance, or twirling a baton. There was just never, they didn't have anything that like really was like a calling,
right?
Where you just, there's that old saying that music, you don't choose music, music chooses you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So, but I think my cousin helped that along, and my grandfather was like I don't know that he played, but he made all my aunts and uncles learn an instrument. They all had, there was a piano in the house, and, all of that. So I didn't actually get a drum set until I was 12, and it was contingent on my parents moving into a bigger house. They just didn't have room for anything. And we once we moved into an actual house, or a bigger house where I had room and I had a big bedroom and I could set up a drum set, they promised me that I could have a drum set. And they were good on that promise. And as soon as we moved into this place, which was over the summer, I was setting up. She bought a used drum set from one of the local guys. My mom used to manage bands. She was cool. Managing this band, and the drummer in that band had an old set that he sold her for me. Mm-hmm. And so I got it, and I was setting it up, and my mom called me. She goes, "There's someone here to see you." And so I come downstairs, and there's this kid outside the front door, and he's holding a guitar like this. He doesn't have a case. He's just holding it by the neck. And he goes, "You play drums?" And I said, "Well, I have a set, it's upstairs." And he goes, "Can I see it?" It was very bold, right? So he comes over, introduced himself, His name was Bruce Bowen. And we went upstairs, and I'm still putting it together. I'm trying to figure out how to put a hi-hat stand together. You know, I didn't have anyone to help me.
Right.
And so I got it all together, and he goes, well, play something. And I'd never done that. I played like a march at a sixth grade, graduation ceremony, and that was about it. So I got it together, and I remember I just played, you know, because I'd seen a lot of bands at that point, which I'll get to in a second. And he goes, and I remember thinking that it was terrible. You know, I was going, God, this is bad. This is really bad. So I got done playing, and he goes, you want to start a band?
Sure.
That was it. It was like really like the first day I had my drums. I also had like another guy who wanted to start a band, and he brought a couple other kids over, and we rehearsed. We would play up in my bedroom, which didn't last long, you know, before they moved us to the basement because it was right over everyone's heads.
Right.
And moved us to the basement, and we were, you know, it's a great thing for kids. I remember we had an open basement. You really couldn't even close the door. It was just like kind of an opening that went downstairs, and it had to be really loud. And I remember coming up after one of our rehearsals, and my mom's friend goes, how do you stand this? Fanny, how do you stand this? And my mom goes, I know exactly where my kids are.
Yeah.
Do you know where your kids are?
Right.
And I know they're not getting into trouble. They're just playing music. So that was her whole thing. And she was always like, so I got this just support like you can't imagine.
Yeah.
You know, it was unconditional, and she just loved everything I did and every band that I was in. And, you know, she loved me to the point of annoyance sometimes. You know, you just mom was just all over you.
I got one of those.
And it's a good thing to have. I miss that shit. You know, I mean, when you're 13, it can be annoying, but when you get older, you really
embrace it. Yeah.
So we did that. We put that band together. I was in seventh grade at that point, just starting seventh grade, and we signed up for the seventh grade talent show. And in Rome, New York, in the seventh grade talent show, there was probably 5 bands in this talent show.
Wow.
Okay.
If you can think about it, it's a small town, small school, and there was all these bands. It's also like 1967. So, you know, the Beatles were still like, you know, just huge influence on everyone. And so we played the talent show, and there was a kid that was in my homeroom, another drummer. And I'd never heard him play, but his band was in the talent show also. And he sang from behind the drums. And I just like was so impressed with his voice that I approached him after we got done playing and asked him to be the singer in my band. Leave the drums.
Right.
And I mean, there's this 12-year-old mentality. Like, I'm obviously the better drummer. You should come and sing in my band. And to my surprise, he said yes. And his name was Dave Corcoran. And if he was still around, I would suggest you do an interview with him, because we both ended up in Syracuse, going to OCC for a couple years. And while we were in Syracuse, we both ended up playing in all the he went back after that band broke up. We put a band together, and we're playing like colleges and stuff. And I remember pulling up to a frat house with my mom in a Rambler station wagon and a trailer.
Right.
And all these little kids get out to play the frat party, and they didn't know. that they had hired a bunch of kids. We were just popular.
Right.
And we were good. Once we started playing, everyone was fine, but they were still kind of like, they wanted adults, at least people their own age. So I remember that stuff was funny, but we were so into it at the time. And I remember seeing in Rome in 1965, 66, and 67, there were things called teen clubs, and my mom owned one called the Hullabaloo in Rome, New York. It was right across the street from the Capitol Theater.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been to the Capitol,
yeah,
it's now just they tore it down. It was an old Montgomery Ward's building, and they converted it to a teen club, and they had bands like the Sundowners who were a big deal at the time, signed to a major label. Ronnie Dio, it was Ronnie Dio and the Prophets.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and then I remember it was Ronnie Dio and the Prophets. Then the Electric Elves.
Yep.
And then Elf.
Yep. Elf.
And I saw Ronnie Dio was one of the first bands I ever saw. So when someone asked me like, who are your early influences? And I mentioned Ronnie Dio. They're kind of like, what? Really? You? Because they only know the metal thing. But
right.
I saw him play, Beatles songs.
Right, right.
And sing. Yeah, it was a teen club called Where the Action Is. That some friends of my mom ran. And I saw, the first band I ever saw was a band called The Royals, that had Franny Migliaccio, who's now Franny Cosmo, who's was a lead singer in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all the Migliaccio brothers from Utica, and they sang like Boston. I think they might have even been responsible for that sound, because they moved to they moved to Boston and played around there. At least that's the story I heard.
Nice Irish name, Migliaccio.
Yeah.
They probably did really well in Boston. They changed it to O'Malley.
Yeah.
But they were great. So the Royals were the first band. And the second band I saw was Ronnie Dio and the Prophets. And the whole front line was like 5'2". There was Ronnie, his cousin Dave Feinstein, Rock Feinstein from the Rods.
Yep.
Carl Kennedy. I know you did an interview with Carl. Rock Feinstein and Nick Pantis, I think, who died in a car accident. They had a terrible accident at some point. But the whole front line was 5'2". They wore black turtlenecks, black leather vests, and black leather pants. And Gary Driscoll was the drummer. And that guy he was just such a great person for me to see at that time, because he was just so dynamic and so cool. He had lots of chops. He grooved really hard, and I loved the way he played. He was my hero for a long time. And he ended up playing. He's the drummer on the first Rainbow album, Richie Blackmore's Rainbow.
Yes.
So he was one of the guys that lasted. Because Ronnie, the Elf, went through a bunch of different incarnations, and I had worked with. I'm going off the track here. I'd worked with Steve Edwards, who was the guitar player in Elf, that did the 2 albums with them. Because Rock Feinstein had left the band, and they got Steve Edwards and some other guys that I didn't know as well. But Gary Driscoll was a drummer, and they toured with Deep Purple, and Richie Blackmore took them as his backup band. And I worked with Steve Edwards like right after that. And we're playing some club out in, somewhere in central New York. And he found out that he'd lost his gig in the Rolling Stone magazine.
Yeah.
No one told him. He just just read that. So
you've been replaced.
This is Rainbow, right? Without me.
I
Yeah,
believe that
so-
story was told in the Richie Blackmore documentary that I saw.
Did it? Was
Yeah,
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Along with the elf story that you were telling just a minute ago about the car accident.
There was a bad car accident.
Yeah, that's in Dio's documentary as well.
Wow.
They cover that.
Yeah, that would have been about 1966 or so.
Yep.
So just before I actually started playing, but that was the thing. So if you actually see, that's what live music is so important. If you actually see people play, even if you're not playing, you kind of have an idea. Like when I got my first drum set, I sort of had an idea, and I was playing. Rehearsing with a local drum corps in Rome called the Copper City Cadets. I wasn't old enough to be in the corps, but they'd let me go down to the VFW and just and do paradiddles and shit with
That's
everyone.
cool.
It was really cool. It was
Yeah.
really cool. It was great. I learned how to hold the sticks properly and all the stick heights because it's very regimented.
Right.
Drum corps. Everything has to be perfect.
Perfect. Yes.
And yeah, so that was, I got that pretty early on also. So yeah, the London Times was the name of my first band that we put together in 7th grade with Dave Corcoran. The two of us put the band together and played for 3 years, broke up. Dave went back to playing drums. And then when we both went to OCC together, and in 1982, we were both signed to major labels. I was on RCA with 805, and he was on Motown or CBS with Duke Jupiter.
Oh, great band.
Yes. Oh yeah. Well, he's the one that's singing "I'll Drink to You." He's the drummer in that band. Yeah. So we met in 7th grade in homeroom.
That's awesome. I love Duke Jupiter.
So I gotta ask.
Yeah.
What single did you record at 13 or 12?
We did an original and a cover. My mom asked this. In fact, the guy who sold me the drum set, he was a multi-instrumentalist, and she asked him to help us write a song. His name was Ed Lovett, and we rehearsed in the basement of the Hullabaloo Club. We had a gig there every month, but we had all this space to practice, and he came and helped us write a song because we were so really, I was the youngest, and there was guys that were 2, 3, even 4 years older than me, maybe 3 years older. So some were already in high school, and I was in junior high school. And so he helped us write a song. He came up with the beat and the chords that everyone would play, and then he sat and wrote lyrics, and that was our original tune. And then on the other side was a tune that we learned by going to see Ronnie Dio, and it was called "Good Time." Gonna have a good time tonight. Rock and roll, Houston, da da da.
Right.
In Excess did it, as they had a hit with it in the 80s, and so that was. But we didn't know what it was called. We learned it by watching Ronnie Dio play it.
Oh wow,
and
that's awesome.
No, whenever they played, we all went out as a band. It was like going to school,
Right.
So, and we're just little kids. I mean, and that those tunes were in our ballpark. We could play them, but we called it rock and roll music. And my mom didn't know anything about the business really, and she loved me and loved us, and wanted us to get out there and play. Because if it hadn't been for her, we would have stayed we would have been a basement band. Right. She actually put us out on stage, which, as one gig is worth 50 rehearsals.
Oh, sure it is.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You get out there and play on stage. That's the more you play in front of people, because everyone's antennas are way up, and it's a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. So she got us in front of people, and and it was the days of the Partridge Family and all of that. And she just thought that we should have a record. And she booked recording time at a studio in Utica, and upstairs a place called Dell's Music. There's a Dell's music store in Utica. And Gene Rice was the engineer, who later moved to Nashville and worked with, bands like, Alabama and maybe Restless Heart and stuff.
Yeah.
You would know them.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a recording studio upstairs, Dell's Music. And so I she didn't know anything. So I think she booked an hour.
Oh.
Whatever because we had one take of each song.
Wow.
And we went in and we played each song one time, and then they added vocals to them, to the tracks. And that was it. And then she took it to New York City, and somehow I wish she was around, because I never got the story. I never got the full story, like how it all went down. So how does your mom go to New York City and get you a record deal?
Right.
No kidding.
It's like it's crazy. So, but she did, and I don't think any money exchanged hands. They just sent us singles. We got boxes of the singles. I still have some. In fact, I remember I thought I was going to bring one for you, but I forgot.
That's all right. Next time.
So yeah, I can mail it to you.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. So we got. I don't think that there was any money. I mean, she wouldn't have known how to negotiate a deal, or that even money was involved, or copyrights even, because we were playing a cover of a song, and it just, there was no, you're supposed to pay for that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, so we had a record, and it was great. It was playing on jukeboxes, in my hometown, which is at 13. It doesn't get better than that.
Right.
Really. So that was that. And then I lived in Utica for a minute, and I had a band with the same guy that showed up at my house with the guitar. And he switched to bass, and we had a band that was a power trio, only no guitar. We had an organist, like a Keith Emerson type.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was organ, bass, drums, and a lead singer, and he also played like he had a synthesizer, real early like monophonic synthesizer, like a Mini Moog kind of thing, that he ran through an amp and distortion pedals. And we used to do Jimi Hendrix songs and stuff like that, because he would tune the oscillators to fifths, and it was wild. It sounded like a guitar player. And we were playing around, and our agent got a call that Alice Cooper was opening up, or Alice Cooper was playing at the Utica Auditorium, Utica War Memorial, whatever it's called. And ZZ Top was supposed to open up, but their truck broke down, and they needed an opening act. And if he had someone, and he sent us. So we ended up, I was 18 then, and just turned 18. And we ended up sold out show. It was the $1 Billion Babies tour.
Yep.
And remember setting up the drums and then them walking us out on stage with flashlights to our gear. And then when the lights went up and I saw the place was jam-packed. I mean, it's like, I can't explain that, but it's another thing that I can see like it was yesterday, because it was just so surreal, because we've just been playing clubs, and not everyone was into Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Right,
we did pretty
right.
well, so I was starting to get more into the progressive rock thing with that band, and we did Tarkus and did a lot of stuff off the first two ELP albums, and Whiter Shade of Pale, and all these great Hammond organ songs, and then the Hendrix stuff. So we opened for Alice Cooper and killed it, and it just did it just came together for us. We had a great set, and got to meet everyone in the band. there was even talk of some other dates and stuff like that, but I don't know exactly what happened. I was not into the business. I didn't get into the actual business part of it till way later. But it did get us more opening spots for bigger bands. So we ended up opening for Sly and the Family Stone after that. We did that a couple times.
Okay.
And that was great. Yeah. I had a set of Pink Champagne Sparkle Rogers at the time, and Sly's drummer, and I can't think of his name. It's can't think of it. But he used my drums. He liked my set. He goes, "You mind if I use these for the show?" I said, "No, hell no." So he just stood backstage and watched him play on my drums for the whole Sly concert. So we got a chance to do some of that stuff by 18, and then I was getting disenchanted with it. Was just really hard, the music business is hard. So I decided I was going to go to school for music and maybe be a music teacher or something like that. So that's when I went to OCC, and Dave, my 7th grade homeroom pal, was going at the same time. Our paths just like recrossed again,
right,
at OCC, and so I started going out to see Syracuse bands, and I saw 805 was one of them. There was also like Dove and I'm trying to think. They were my favorite, I think.
And Dove was Buzz Rick Kua's band.
Rick Kua's band with Dave Hanlon on drums.
Yep.
The great drummer. Dave was very influential for me because I saw him early on, and they were doing the stuff that I really dug. I mean, it was a little more fusiony, and I really liked what they did. And he's a great player. He still is a great player.
Right.
So there was and Larry Arlotta was the piano player who was world class.
Right.
World class. Really, these guys are as good as it gets, in my opinion. And we're kind of lucky to have that, like right in your backyard.
Sure.
You take it for granted growing up, but sometimes the local guy is just as good as anyone out there.
Right.
They're just not.
So at what point do you join 805?
Well, I was at OCC, and I'd gone to see the band, and the first time I saw them, I was blown away. It was a great band, a lot of energy, and it was a show. It was a rock show, and I was impressed at every level of that. Jim Lucas was playing drums. You met Jim at our little get together.
Yep.
He was the first drummer, and they were great. So I heard that they were looking for a new drummer, and because Jim was getting married and leaving the band, and I went and auditioned. I'd seen the band a couple times, and I was pretty familiar with their set list. I mean, they were doing like Yes, and I think they were doing Yes and Genesis tunes even then. That would have been like 1978 or 77 actually. And so I learned their what I thought was their hardest song. It was a Yes tune, might have been Siberian Khatru or something like that. So I learned that tune and all their other ones. And when I went to OCC, I didn't read music. I had to. That's where I learned how to read music, was at that school. And I had to go through a summer program before I could get into the music program. So I went through the summer, and I remember was not practicing, jamming with some guys in like this little cafeteria area. They have this open area at the school, and I was jamming with some guys, and Joe Raposo walks by, and I didn't know who he was, and he had a bunch of music and stuff, and he stops and he listens to us, and so we got done playing. He goes, I want to audition you guys for my big band. He goes, because it was the beginning of the semester. And so he hands out the music, and I didn't read it all. So I just took it and put it on my stand. I didn't even look at it. I just put it on a music stand. And he counts it off, and we start playing, and I'm just relying on my ears and, listening. And then there was some breaks in the song that I, didn't make. And he looks over at my music stand and stops us, and he walks over to my music stand, and he takes the music and does this, right? I put it upside down on my stand, right? And he goes, "You don't read, do you?" And I said, "No, that's why I'm here. I'm learning how to read." He goes, "I can teach you how to read." He goes, "I can't teach people how to feel music." He goes, "I want you to be in my big band." So I was in the big band before I was even a music major at that school.
Right.
So did that for a while. And then got through the semester. I remember the whole horn section applauding me when I got through a chart from beginning to end without fucking it up. Because the horn players start with notes.
Yeah.
Right.
But guitar players and drummers don't necessarily start that way.
No.
And so and then the 805 audition happened, and I went and auditioned, and I think they asked me what I wanted to play, and I just mentioned, I said, let's play this one, which was their hardest tune, and we did that, and then it was like, wow, and let's do this one, let's do that one. So it was a long, we played a bunch of songs, and I was going to, I guess, Porter was going to give me the word the next day, whether I had the gig or not. So Ed and I actually, it was some farmhouse in Kirkville maybe. And Ed and I stayed, the keyboard player who had back then, the keyboard rigs, a Hammond organ, a Mini Moog, a Fender Rhodes. I mean, that shit was to die for, right? I mean, you still want to have that stuff. And that was nothing better than that, in my opinion. And we stayed up like all night, literally all night, jamming, the two of us, and came up with a bunch of ideas. We would just got into this thing where we would throw things back and forth. He'd have some progression or riff or something like that, and I would have a suggestion for it, and it would go back and forth. And we did that until the sun came up, and Ed's told me, he goes, "Well, I want you to be in this band really bad." So and I got the gig the next day. I was told I had the gig, and I figured I could go back to school sometime, and because I really wanted, that's what I really wanted to do.
Right.
Was I just wanted to play.
Yeah.
But oh boy, were you wrong. You're not going. I said, "Oh boy, were you wrong? You're not going back to school."
No.
Well, it's fun. It's funny.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Frank, we just had this conversation 2 weeks ago. We were talking to Sal from the band Stained, and we had a conversation about how so many people back in, I don't know, early 80s left places like Juilliard just because they met each other, and then the record labels were just using it for a farming ground to go and find musicians to join these bigger bands or to start bands that they were putting together. And it was almost like nobody finished. Everybody started first or second semester, maybe a third semester, and then they were whisked away to greatness. So.
Yeah, I heard a saying that, at Berkeley, if you graduated, you failed. There's something like that.
Right. It's like spending your whole career in the minor leagues, never going to the show.
Because so many guys, especially that school,
yeah.
Get picked up. Buddy Rich used to get his whole band from that school. He was famous for that.
We will be having Buddy Rich's daughter on the show.
Yeah,
I've been actually.
Oh wow!
I've been talking to her.
Wow.
So we're excited to bring the stories, Buddy Rich's stories, to the non Central New York, but still some cool stuff coming up.
Well, look at the guys from Dream Theater. I don't think they graduated either. And
no, the
three
whole
of them
band
found each other.
Yeah,
and
the whole
okay.
band came from.
They might. Yeah, I mean, it's not. It wouldn't surprise me if they didn't.
Yeah.
I also know a lot of people who did graduate that are out there killing it.
Right.
So
yeah, we don't want to. Don't go to Juilliard. Don't go to Berkeley. That school sucks. Yeah.
Remember, if you graduated, you failed.
Yeah. So you're with 805. You guys crushed it for a while there in the 80s. I mean, you had a record deal. You were on MTV. That.
Yeah.
Did you feel at that point that I've made it? We're on the road. We're making it. Or was there still something in the back of your brain that said there's still more to come?
Yeah. It was brutal, and we worked a lot. Mm-hmm. That band worked a ton in the beginning, and I remember saying this early on. In fact, the reason I wanted to be in the band because I thought the band could get a record deal. Mm-hmm, and right. I mean, when I went to see them, it was one of the only bands I saw around that went, okay, this band could be a lot bigger than this. And that's why I wanted to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. So it was like when I got in the band, I think I said exactly that. I said, this band could get a record deal. We should be writing more original material. They had a couple tunes. So we started some of the ideas that Ed and I bounced around the first day of my audition, ended up becoming tunes, and we played those for years. And when I think, we were packing places, and it was very, very exciting at the time. It was also really grueling, a lot more work than most people think it is.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The band was not a band that just got high or shit. Not that never happened, but it was really the focus. I tell people that it's music that kept me off the drugs. It's just I just couldn't play well. And with plenty of offers, but I just never felt that I was really connected mm-hmm. when I was doing it. So I just didn't.
Right.
I think we had a good work ethic. We rehearsed a ton and played a ton, and got record companies interested in us, I think, because we were packing clubs. And I don't think we were signed on the strength of our songs. We were signed on the strength of our live show and the sound of the band.
Right.
And I think the record companies looked at us and said, all we have to do is give these guys the right songs and they'll kill it.
Right.
And unfortunately that didn't really happen, but we, the long 10-minute tunes that we had in the beginning were more prog rock. They weren't interested in at all, and that was really more what we were about. But we wanted a record deal, and back then it meant something,
right?
Having a deal was really like, it's really just the beginning, and you don't discover that until you actually get the deal. You go, okay, now we got to make this work.
Right.
It's just another step up. So they basically threw out all of our tunes except one, and wanted us to write like 9 more songs. So we were writing songs now that are 3-4 minutes long, tops. And we came up with 9 that were okay. and enough for that record. And it was just an interest. You know, I was so green with the whole business. I didn't understand. I didn't understand any of it really. You know, the producer's role and the record company and what they were trying to do with us. Can you still see me?
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. All right. So I have all these messages. I'm on my phone. So we came up with 9 tunes. We worked with a guy named Tom Bush, who had saw an engineer from Electric Ladyland, who saw us at a gig in Dodgeville. I can't remember the name of the place. It's like outside of Little Falls or something like that. And he was home for Christmas visiting his mom, and went into the club and saw us and was like, the one thing that was cool about that band is that it didn't matter if there was only 2 people in the audience. We played like we were at Madison Square Garden. So
right,
it
sure.
was just that was kind of the we never even talked about it. We just
played.
did it.
Yeah.
You know, we played. You know, we would go into clubs in Rochester. I remember Penny Arcade, and the first time we played there was like 10 people.
Yeah.
And we played, we did our thing, and the next time we played there, it was sold out.
Right.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's so, you know, that's what you have to do. And it's sad that the bands don't get a chance to do that so much anymore.
Yeah.
You know, just where you're on a circuit and you rotate all of these clubs and you're playing 3 sets a night. It's there's nothing better for your chops than that.
You know, I think
learn so much.
I think the work ethic that you had at that time, the bands that made it on those circuits had the same work ethic. You know, we've mentioned in the past, and we talked briefly before we started recording, but you know, we mentioned Billy Sheehan because Billy's been on the show. And
I watched them all.
When Billy,
you're the one.
Oh, you're the guy.
I'm the guy.
So Billy mentioned,
that
the same thing with Talus. There was shows that they had 4 guys sitting at a table and they played, and then later on, and they were like, "Yeah, we were at that show." And next thing you know, the next time they play would be packed. But I think it's important to put that out there because it's so easy for bands to play a show nowadays. The bar owners are relying so much on so many asses in the seats that they lose focus that, there may be a little bit here now, but those 3 people could turn into 12, can turn into 50, can turn into 200 because you have to build that area. And bar owners are like, "Oh, you didn't do great your first time here," and you're like, "Well, nobody knows us,
right? It was
from
first
Buffalo
time here.
or from Rochester.
Yeah.
It's our first time in the city, or we had a bad night." But
get over yourself.
They're going to tell, and if the band knows that they have the confidence from the bar owner, they're going to play, and they're going to play their hearts out, and hopefully pack the place the next time.
Yeah, it's. I don't think that exists anymore.
No.
To be honest.
No, it doesn't.
I don't think it exists. I mean, when I moved to LA, I was insulted that I had a gig at the Whiskey with a band that I was in, and we had to guarantee, 50 tickets at $10 a pop. So the band had to come up with $500 to play that gig.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from, like actually getting paid to play since I was 12 years old, and now I'm like 32 or whatever it was, and you want me to pay to play your club? I couldn't wrap my brain around that at all.
Yeah, right.
And that's how it is here, and it's not even. I don't know. I'm just kind of out of it. I retired a couple of years ago from all of this, so I don't know. I feel sorry for the younger kids coming up because it's music business is a lot harder than most people imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Touring is brutal. I did my fair share of that, and I can honestly say I didn't like it. I liked being on stage,
Right.
but that's only like an hour and a half, of all this, the rest of this time where you're schlepping through airports and on a bus. And my first bus tour was kind of exciting because I finally got on a tour bus, and you kind of, you sort of work your way up going, I'm getting there. And, but that gets old pretty quick.
Sure it does.
Mm-hmm.
Sleeping in your little bunk.
Right.
Eating it at different Waffle Houses everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Stopping at truck stops to take a shower.
Back to the album. We did that record, and it didn't do great. We got some money to do a video, and that wasn't great either. And it was, I mean, I'm one of the things, there was an edit in the video, or there should have been an edit in the video. We did a couple takes of it, but they used a take where, Porter clobbers Cremo in the head with his guitar when he comes up to sing the last chorus of the song. Oh. And it was in the video when they released it on MTV. And it's, I've never really been able to laugh at that. It's easy for someone else who's not like personally, affected by it. But Sure. It was like, it's like, how did that happen? That was a professional video crew. We did another take of this song. Why did they use that one? And then it was, we asked them to pull it from MTV. And they kept it up for a couple weeks and finally pulled it. So there's all these kind of mishaps, and the original tune, we weren't really songwriters. I think there was some stuff that was pretty good. They got our second album, the songwriting, the pop songwriting got better. But back in the day, Bruce Springsteen had a 7-album deal. Right. It wasn't about. It was a development deal. So you make an album, you go out and play, and make friends, and then come back and do another album, then do that again. And eventually, it's no different playing, theaters or concert halls than it is playing clubs. Right. You're making friends. You get out there, your album gets played on the radio, and people come out to see your show. We just got one shot, and now I don't even know. I don't know how it works anymore. Yeah, it's just really different. But around 1988 or 86, I left 805 because we couldn't get another record deal, and we were doing more covers, and it was a little heartbreaking for me to do covers with that band. All just right with the bulk of the material being cover material. And I just figured I'll just go do that with someone else. Yeah, I can't do it, and so I left, and Ed left around the same time. I think a guitar player left. So it was like 1986, and then for the next couple of years, I started working for the DeSantis family, Mario and Maria, and teaching at DeSantis Music Schoolhouse in North Syracuse. And those are great times for me because I kind of switched gears a little bit. And I was finally making some money because I never made any money with 805. I mean, I think I started at $200 a week and ended at $300 a week. So when I went out on my own and freelanced, I was actually making money because it was like I just left my band, right? And I had all of these rebound relationships with like every band in town. Right. So I played with Atlas first, which is a horn band. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Oh yeah. Yep. I played with Atlas. I played with Mark Doyle and Joel Whiting. Oh yeah. And I would last about a month with these bands because everyone asked me to play. So I took the gigs and then just found that I just wasn't really my thing. I wasn't the guy for it, so I would leave right away. But I did Atlas, Doyle and Whiting, and a band called Free at Last. I actually did that when I was out here. Masters of Reality.
Okay.
Was another. Yeah, we did. That's when I played with Masters of Reality. Tim Harrington called me up because Tim had actually auditioned for 805 once when we were looking for a guitar player, but we were looking for someone who could sing, and at the time he wasn't that guy. But great player, genius player, Chris Goss. So I got together with those guys and we rehearsed somewhere, some club, and did a gig at the Lost Horizon. And it was wild.
Yeah.
And I really loved the material.
Yeah.
That band was really really something special, I thought. And but I just got out of 805 and I'd all this like road stuff that I'd done and grueling, and I was just breaking up with a girlfriend and all kinds of things, and I was just looking for a break from all of that. They called me up and asked me to go do a showcase in New York City, and I turned it down. And then I got a call from Vinny Ludovico, and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to be playing with the Masters at the gig in New York. He goes, will you take my Top 40 gig?" And I said, "Sure." I mean, it was just all I was looking for. I didn't want any pressure. I just wanted to go in, and I didn't want to have to rehearse with anyone. I know all these songs already. Let's just play them. And so we swapped. Well, we didn't. I turned down the New York gig showcase, and I didn't know that anything was going to turn out from it at all. And they went down and played, and Rick Rubin was there and signed them.
Yeah, crushed it.
And it just I just kicked myself in the head for like a whole year after that. This is because I just did, I just was in a weird space. And I'd already gone down to New York City with Todd Hoban. I don't know if you're familiar. Todd Hoban band.
Very, very familiar.
Yeah. Well, Jim Lucas, the first drummer from 805, was playing with Todd Hoban, and Jim called me up because he had some job that he was doing that he couldn't get away to do these gigs. So he asked me if I'd fill in for him and do the Todd Hoban gig. So I went to we went to Pennsylvania and did a couple shows on there. One of them was opening for the Beach Boys, and I learned all the songs on the way down in the van. So, but those are I was pretty good at that stuff at the time. I had I could suss out like a song form and an arrangement and all of that stuff and make all the hits. Because I just done so much of it. Yeah. And that's one of the advantages, I think, of starting out playing by ear.
Right.
Is you develop a good memory. So I did that, and then I was working at DeSantis and teaching. I taught David Northrup, who's a great drummer.
Yep. Been on the show.
Nashville. Yep. You had him on. Good friend of mine. But he was just this kid who, just wanting to play. Yeah. And, so he took some lessons from me. Chris Alice, who's another Syracuse guy, North Syracuse, took lessons from me. He's out here in LA. And I think he was doing Michael Nesmith's gig, and he's worked with Peter Asher, and he's doing recording and whatnot. And he sounds great. And then a girl named Lorraine Fana, who was an Oswego student, who was very good. And she ended up with a Peebo Bryson gig and did that for a long time.
Wow.
But they were all coming. They were taking lessons from me at DeSantis Music Schoolhouse during that time. And during that time, by the way, because I know you had Rick Latham on.
Yep. Yes.
I discovered Rick Latham's book. And that was like, Steve Gadd is Steve Gadd. But at the time, it was just, he was doing everything He was on the radio with Paul Simon. He was the Chick Corea albums. I mean, you name it. He was doing everything. And Rick had a book, Advanced Funk Studies, that was in that style and kind of broke things down.
Yep.
And when I went to teach, when I started teaching at DeSantis, because they asked me to teach not because I was a good teacher, but I was in a popular band and they figured I would get some students. I didn't have a curriculum. I gave lessons, but I just would be like, someone would ask me about a lick I did or something, and I would show them that. And eventually I figured I should probably charge people, right? Because I was doing a lot of it. So I worked at DeSantis, and I discovered that book, and I fell in love with it. The solos in the back were great, very musical, all the little exercises, and it was all handwritten. And I remember, I think he was self-publishing it at the time, and I don't remember how I discovered it. I just found it somewhere and started going through it, and just the GAD connection immediately, was apparent to me, and that became my curriculum at DeSantis Music Schoolhouse. So I had everyone go through it because it started out simple enough, and I was getting players that were not day one beginners, kind of intermediate,
right?
Like Dave could play. Dave could play a bit. It's not like he couldn't play. Chris could play. Lorraine could play. But I had that book, and we went through that. So my hat's off to Rick Latham for.
It's still in print today. It's still being used today.
Yeah,
guys like
Jeff
Tripoli and Kevin Dean are still teaching it. I think once the teacher knows that a student has four-limb independence, that's when they start breaking into that. Yeah. They're breaking it down. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop us here for 1 second because I'm going to continue to record, but I want to break it here because I'm going to split this into two because I know that Frank has so much more to tell us. So.
Oh, we're probably way over time, right?
Oh, it doesn't matter. This is us being able to tell your story. So at this point, I am just going to do this. I'm going to play the music.
Okay.
And that's where we're going to cut it, and then we're just going to come back again.
All right. So, done. Ready? Go.
Give us a second. Part one. Wrapping it. Part one. You've been listening to part one of the Frank Briggs story.
Yes.
I'm the good,
the band,
the ugly. I'm Big Papa.
And I'm Jeff.
And that's Frank Briggs.
It is.
Stick around next time, and you'll get to hear part two of this wonderful story.
Yes.
We want to thank our sponsors, Sharky's Events Center,
DJ Lights the Beach,
Good Nature Brewing Company,
Uncle Jimmy's Live Vocal Music,
Print Shop Underground,
Snarky Productions, and
Toffee Break Toffee. But let's not forget
Ultimate Ears.
Ultimate Ears, everybody. Stick around. Part two's coming up, and we will see you next week. Remember what we always say?
Be good to each other.
Don't be a dick. We'll see you guys in just a moment.
Yes. Oh, I can't say it.
You can't say it.
Damn it.
Yep. Ha.
Got me.
Dickhead.
Ha.